Is Scottsdale actually worth the price in 2026? Or are you just paying for the name? Because right now, it's expensive. Everyone knows it. And this is the question I get all the time from buyers. Am I paying for something real, or am I overpaying for a zip code? And the truth is, two people can spend the same amount in Scottsdale and have completely different experiences. So in this video, I'm breaking down where the premium actually shows up in your day-to-day life and where it honestly doesn't. This is Living in Scottsdale. Let's get into it. Let's just start with the obvious. Scottsdale is not cheap. Well, maybe compared to San Francisco or New York, but not inside of Arizona. In 2026, the median home price here is still well above the Phoenix metro, hovering close to $1 million. And you feel it pretty quickly when you start looking around. You pull up Phoenix, then Scottsdale. Desert Ridge, then Scottsdale. Maybe Gilbert or Chandler, then Scottsdale. And it doesn't take long before you're like, yeah, okay, this is a little different. The first thing you notice is price per square foot. In Scottsdale, you might be paying 30 to 50% more for basically the same house you could get in places like Surprise or Buckeye. Same bedrooms, same bathrooms, same garage. Just a very different number. Then you've got the entry point. In a lot of cities, $1 million home feels like you've arrived. In Scottsdale, that's where things just start getting interesting. And depending on the area, especially in North Scottsdale, now you've got HOA fees layered in, gated communities, private roads, maybe a security guard at the gate, all the things that sound great until you see that monthly number. So naturally the question becomes, why? And I've been helping people move here for about 20 years now, and this is exactly where I see people either make a great decision or a very expensive mistake. Why is there that big of a gap? And this is where people start to understand Scottsdale a little bit differently. Because it's not random. Scottsdale is basically boxed in. To the east, you've got the Pima Maricopa Indian Community, or the Res. To the north, protected land and Tonto National Forest. South and west, you're already built into Tempe and Phoenix. So unlike the West Valley of Phoenix, where they just keep building further and further out into the desert, Scottsdale doesn't really have that option. There is a limit. And when you have limited space with a lot of demand, especially from out-of-state buyers, prices will go up. That's just how it works. So now you're looking at it thinking, okay, but what am I actually getting for that? And that is the right question. Because if you only look at the house itself, the math isn't gonna math. If you're just buying 4 walls, a kitchen, a few bedrooms, and a garage, you can absolutely get more for your money somewhere else. No question about it. But Scottsdale was never really just about the house. And I've seen that firsthand. My family moved here from Chicago about 40 years ago. And what Scottsdale is today is completely different from what it was back then. You're buying the environment around it. You're buying how the city runs. You're buying the consistency. And this is the part people don't always see right away. It's the stuff you don't notice until you live somewhere that doesn't have it. It's how the city handles drainage when monsoons hit and things don't flood. It's how quickly police respond when you need them. It's how strict they are with zoning, short-term rentals, and development. It's why you don't see random things popping up next to neighborhoods that completely change the feel of an area. That all comes from how the city is managed. And Scottsdale has a tax base to support that. So what you're really paying for is a system that works. And in 2026, that system is not cheap. All right, so what are you actually paying for? Because when people move to Scottsdale, they're not just buying a house, they're buying a lifestyle. And I know, that sounds like one of those real estate phrases that gets thrown around all the time. I've probably thrown it around a few times myself. But here, it actually shows up in very real, very noticeable ways. The first one is consistency. Scottsdale is one of the most consistently maintained cities in the entire valley. And this is one of those things you don't fully appreciate until you see the difference. You cross from Phoenix into Scottsdale, and it's like the roads get smoother, the landscaping looks dialed in, everything just feels cleaner. Like someone's actually paying attention. And that's not by accident. There's a standard here that doesn't really fluctuate. You don't get as much of that great street, then one weird corner, then a random commercial building that makes 0 sense. Scottsdale protects the look and feel of its neighborhoods. And that matters more than people think, because that consistency is what protects your property value over time. The second is planning. A lot of Scottsdale feels intentional, and that's because it is. This city didn't just grow fast and figure it out later. There's been a ton of planning behind how different areas develop. So South Scottsdale feels completely different than McCormick Ranch, which feels completely different than Troon or Pinnacle Peak in North Scottsdale. And it's not random. Each area has its own identity, its own rules, its own vibe. You don't get that same level of unpredictability you see in other parts of the valley where things just kind of popped up. And then you've got the preserve. This is a big one. The McDowell Sonoran Preserve is over 30,000 acres of protected desert. And that's not just great if you like to hike. That's a permanent line in the sand that says nothing's getting built here. So when you buy near it, you're not wondering what's going up behind your house in 5 years. Your views are going to stay intact. And that kind of certainty is worth something. Third, the experience. Scottsdale's a destination city. People come here on vacation, then they go home and figure out how they can move here. And there's a reason for that. We've got high-end restaurants, top-tier golf, luxury resorts, walkable areas like Old Town and Kierland, and of course, 70-degree days in January, all packed in a 50-minute drive from tip to tip. So when you live here, everything is just easy. You can go from hiking in the preserve to dinner at one of the best restaurants in the state to shopping at Fashion Square, all within about 15 minutes of each other. That's not normal in most cities. And here's something most people don't think about. The level of wealth in Scottsdale attracts a different level of business. So when a new high-end restaurant concept comes in or a big-name chef decides to open in Arizona, they're usually looking at Scottsdale first. Which means if you live here, you're getting access to that stuff before everyone else. So yeah, you're paying more. But you're not just paying for the house. You're paying for how everything around it functions. You're paying for consistency, planning, and access. And for a lot of people, that trade-off makes complete sense. Quick question for you. When you think about moving, what matters more? The house itself, square footage, layout, finishes, or everything around it? The neighborhood, the amenities, the city? Let me know down in the comments. There's no wrong answer. Some people need the extra space. Others are perfectly fine going smaller if everything outside their front door feels right. All right, now let's talk about where this premium breaks, because this is the part most agents won't say out loud. They'll sell you the dream. I'm gonna tell you where people mess this up. If your main goal is maximizing square footage, Scottsdale might not be the move. If your goal is getting the newest possible house for the lowest possible price, Scottsdale's definitely not the move. Let me tell you about what I call the square footage trap. I see this happen all the time. I had a client recently come in thinking Scottsdale was a no-brainer. And then we walked a few homes and they were like, wait, this is what I get for $1 million? If you're trying to stretch your budget, get the 5-bedroom house, the theater room, the big backyard, there are a lot of places around Scottsdale where your money goes much further. I'll take you out to the Southeast Valley, parts of the West Valley, and all of a sudden $1 million looks very different. In those areas, you might be looking at a newer build, 3,500 to 4,000 square feet, modern finishes, everything updated. In Scottsdale, that same $1 million might get you a 1970s ranch that hasn't been touched in 30 years. And you're still writing a check after closing to renovate it. And I see this happen all the time. Buyers come in excited about Scottsdale, then they start looking at the inventory. And they're like, wait, why is this house this price? It's because they're comparing it to what they just saw in Gilbert or Chandler. Brand new house, bigger, cheaper, and now they're standing in a Scottsdale home with popcorn ceilings and a sunken living room. And that's where reality hits. And this is where the emotional side of Scottsdale runs into the math. So if you're really someone who values modern layouts, high ceilings, open floor plans, energy efficiency, a lot of the older Scottsdale homes are gonna feel like a step backwards, even if the zip code sounds better. And then you've got what I call the prestige tax. This is where people really get themselves into trouble. They assume Scottsdale is automatically the right move without asking what they actually care about. Because if you're not using what makes Scottsdale different, you're just paying more for the name. If you don't care about the restaurant scene, if you're not playing golf, if you're not spending time in Old Town going to spring training games, if you don't care about that specific desert aesthetic, then what are you really paying for? I've had buyers who move here for the prestige. then 6 months later realize they would have been way happier in a bigger, newer house somewhere on the outskirts of town. Now they're driving 25 to 35 minutes to see friends, they're not using the amenities, and the only thing that changed is their mortgage payment. And if your lifestyle is really centered around your home, your family, your space, not the city itself, then yeah, you might be overpaying. And then there's the part people don't think about up front, maintenance and renovation. A lot of the most desirable Scottsdale areas are older, which means you're going to be updating things. And you're probably not going to be doing it at IKEA. Contractors know the zip code. So yes, you will hear numbers that feel a little higher than you expected. And in some communities, you can just do whatever you want. There are architectural guidelines, approval processes, specific materials you have to use in other communities, which usually means more time, more money, more patience. So if you're not prepared for that random premium can go up from feeling like an upgrade to feeling like a burden very quickly. But that doesn't mean Scottsdale isn't worth it. It just means it's not worth it for everyone. And this is exactly where people either get this right or get it completely wrong. Now this is where things get really interesting because Scottsdale is changing and it's changing fast. And this is something I've watched shift over real time over the last 10 to 15 years. It used to be all about big homes, big lots, and space. Now, it's almost the opposite. What we're seeing now are these lifestyle pockets popping up, especially around places like Kierland and the Scottsdale quarter in North Scottsdale. And these aren't just neighborhoods, they're ecosystems. You've got luxury condos, offices, restaurants, gyms, all within a few blocks. And here's the interesting part. People are actually willing to give up space for convenience. They'll take a condo that's half the size if it means they can walk to dinner, work 5 minutes away, and not even have to deal with traffic. Because traffic in Phoenix is becoming a real factor now, and avoiding that is starting to feel like a luxury. And this is where it starts affecting value. Scottsdale is actively investing in itself. The greenbelt, the paths, the connectivity, it's all getting better. So when you're buying here, you're not just buying what it is today, you're buying where it's going, what it's going to be. And that matters more than people think. Because Scottsdale isn't just a place to live anymore, it's a place to work. Scottsdale Air Park, Loop 101, there are a lot of high-income jobs there right now. And when people can live 5 minutes from work and they have everything they need and want around them, they don't leave. And that creates a floor under the prices. Would you rather be in one of these walkable, high-energy areas where everything is right outside your door, or in a quieter neighborhood with more space and a slower pace? Let me know down in the comments. I'm curious where you land. Now, this is something a lot of people don't fully understand about Scottsdale. It attracts a completely different type of buyer. Yes, you have local buyers, but you also have a significant amount of out-of-state relocation, particularly from California, Colorado, the Pacific Northwest, and the Midwest. On top of that, there's a strong presence of second home buyers and luxury buyers who are very intentionally choosing Scottsdale for a specific lifestyle, aesthetic, and climate. It's outdoor living here. People love that. And that mix of buyers changes everything. Because Scottsdale isn't just functioning as a city, it operates more like a brand. It has a reputation that extends well beyond Arizona, and that reputation consistently draws interest from a much broader audience than most suburban markets. If you list a home in a typical suburb, your buyer is often someone already living within the Phoenix metro area. But when you list a home in Scottsdale, your buyer could be coming from Seattle, Chicago, Toronto, or even internationally. That expanded reach creates a much deeper and much more resilient demand pool. And that becomes especially important when the market shifts. Scottsdale is not immune to downturns, but it tends to behave differently. It's often one of the last areas to see significant price drops and one of the first to recover. And the reason for that is pretty simple. The desirability factor doesn't just disappear. People still want the lifestyle. They still want the safety, the amenities, and the overall experience of living here. So from an investment standpoint, what you're really buying into is not just the property itself, but the long-term demand for the location. And when you zoom out and compare Scottsdale to other high-end areas, the positioning becomes even clearer. Paradise Valley, for example, is ultra luxury, but it's almost entirely residential and comes with a much higher entry point. Arcadia offers a very unique, lush aesthetic, but it doesn't have the same scale or infrastructure. Scottsdale sits in a bit of a sweet spot. It offers the prestige and lifestyle of a high-end market, but with more diversity in housing options and much more developed commercial and employment base. You're not just buying into a neighborhood, you're buying into a full ecosystem. And that balance is a big reason why it continues to attract attention and hold value year after year after year. Now here's the real answer. Scottsdale is worth it if you value what makes it different. It's worth it if you want a more curated environment where city services are consistently high level. It's worth it if you want predictability, where the look, feel, and development of the city are intentionally managed. And it's worth it if you want immediate access to lifestyle amenities, high-end dining, resorts, golf, and some of the best trail systems in the state. But not everyone values those things equally, and that's where the decision becomes personal. If you're someone who's thinking long-term and you're willing to trade a little bit of square footage for a better location, then the premium in Scottsdale can make a lot of sense. This is for the buyer who sees their home as both a sanctuary and a strategic asset. You're not just buying a property, you're buying into a community that is very unlikely to be downwardly mobile. You're buying into a brand that has been proven over time that it can hold its position and continue to evolve. Now on the other side of that, Scottsdale really shines for people who actually use it. If your ideal Saturday is a morning hike at Gateway Trailhead, lunch somewhere in North Scottsdale, and then an evening in Old Town, living in the middle of all that changes your day-to-day experience. You're not driving 30 to 40 minutes between everything. You're not planning your day around traffic. For these buyers, the premium isn't just a cost. It's an investment in time and in quality of life. And then there's another group of buyers who are thinking a little differently. If you're someone who worries about the what-ifs, about how an area might change over time, Scottsdale tends to offer a higher level of confidence. The city has a strong tax base. Public safety is consistently ranked near the top, and the approach to planning and development is very proactive. So for a lot of people, paying a bit more upfront is worth it for the peace of mind that their environment will remain clean, safe, and desirable over the long term. Who should look elsewhere? On the flip side, if those things don't matter to you, Scottsdale might not be the best fit. If your priority is getting the largest home possible for your budget, there are better options. If you want a brand new build and a massive master plan community at a lower entry point, there are better options. And if you prefer something a little less polished, a little more rugged, areas like Cave Creek or parts of the North Valley might actually feel like a better match. And that's not a negative, that's just alignment. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to buy into a name, it's to match your budget with the way you actually want to live. Some of the happiest homeowners I know are in the West Valley or Far East Valley. Not because it's Scottsdale, because it fits them. They have the space they wanted, they have the home they envisioned, and they have zero regret about the zip code. Here's the nuance of South versus North Scottsdale. And this is where it gets even more important. Because not all of Scottsdale is even the same. South Scottsdale is going through a major transformation right now. It's becoming the younger, more energetic side of the city. You've got mid-century architecture, proximity to Tempe, and Phoenix job hubs, and a more urban feel. Here, you're often paying for proximity and future upside. North Scottsdale is a completely different animal. That's where you get the classic Arizona luxury. Larger lots, desert landscapes, bolder outcroppings, and a quieter pace. In North Scottsdale, the premium is about the views, the privacy, and the prestige. So when people say Scottsdale is expensive, you really have to ask, which Scottsdale are we even talking about? Because they function almost like two different cities under the same name. Looking ahead to 2027 and beyond, we're going to zoom out a little bit. The factors that make Scottsdale expensive today are not going away. Land scarcity is real. They're not making any more of it. Demand from out-of-state buyers is still strong, and the city continues to lean into higher-end development. So if you're waiting for Scottsdale to suddenly become affordable again, you might be waiting a long time. Because this isn't a temporary spike. It's the market pricing in a premium product. Just like you would expect to pay more for a luxury car or a high-end watch, you should expect to pay more for a premier location. So the real question isn't whether Scottsdale is expensive. It's whether what you get for the price actually fits your lifestyle. Because if it does, it can be one of the most rewarding places to live in the entire country. And if it doesn't, there are plenty of great options nearby that might make more sense. Scottsdale isn't for everyone, and that's exactly why it works so well for the people that it does fit. It doesn't try to be everything for everyone. It has a very specific identity, and it protects that. High standards, high expectations, and yes, higher prices. So the real question isn't just, is Scottsdale worth it? Is Scottsdale worth it for you? Does the lifestyle actually match how you want to live? Does the stability justify the higher monthly cost? Does being closer to the things you care about outweigh having more space somewhere else? Because those trade-offs look very different depending on the person. And after doing this for 2 decades, this is usually where people either feel really confident in their decision or realize they need to look at this differently. And if you're trying to figure that out, feel free to reach out. Here's my contact information, so jot it down. Text, email, or call. I'll get right back to you. Tell me what you're comparing, what your priorities are, and what your timeline looks like. We can walk through the numbers, look at different areas, and figure out whether paying that Scottsdale premium actually makes sense for your situation. Even if you're not moving right away, getting clarity early makes a huge difference. And if this breakdown helped you, subscribe for more Scottsdale insights without the noise. And I'm curious, do you think Scottsdale is worth the premium in 2026? Or do you feel like the market has pushed too far? Drop it in the comments. I read every one of them. As always, thanks for watching Living in Scottsdale, and I'll see you in the next one.